hearsay, you see. It was during a recent trip to Switzerland to attend a world-renowned conference on balance that I discovered the missing link to a fall-proof life, all thanks to one evolutionary biologist from Harvard University who presented his findings from a recent study done in Kenya, where they studied the older men and women of tribes who've walked barefoot their entire life. They wanted to compare their feet and nerve perception with the ground and how they walked versus us over here who primarily wear shoes since the day we're born. This professor and his team believed these men and women in Kenya would have less perception with the ground from their thickened soles and therefore would walk differently and often have a higher incidence of falls with age. However, what they found was despite their feet being 50% more calloused, the perception their feet had with the ground was 3 times stronger than us here. He also found they had almost 0 incidence of trips and falls, especially as they got up in age. It's a big reason why you see men and women 60s, 70s, even their 80s still hunting with the younger men of the tribe. While the older women would routinely walk through the rocky terrain to harvest their crops and gather water no matter their age. All completely barefoot and void of dangerous trips and falls. I was shocked and knew this information could be used to help my balance clients back home, but I needed to know one more thing. Because just walking barefoot after decades of being in shoes wasn't practical and could increase your chances of falling because your feet wouldn't be used to this change. Plus, it can be tough on your feet to walk everywhere barefoot, and in public, it's not always allowed. Well, luckily that night at the hotel bar, I got my chance because there he was, enjoying a drink by himself. So I went up and introduced myself. I told him how much I loved his presentation and that I had just one question for him. I said, "Dr. James, obviously what you said could help so many, but how? Because walking around barefoot for these men and women over the age of 60 wasn't practical. So was there anything I could do to help my clients get their life back and rebuild their stability, strength, yet more importantly, their confidence to walk without being consumed by fear?" He said,
"Yes, Chris. Unfortunately, I didn't get to that part in my speech. They cut my time in half. But yes, your clients can enjoy the same fall-proof benefits those in my study had in Kenya, without walking around barefoot 24 hours of the day for years. Chris, there's an inner nerve in your foot called the deep peroneal nerve that's responsible for firing all the little muscles in your foot, ankle, and lower leg that basically catch you from falling while helping you remain upright and stable with each step you take. In those we performed this study on, we found this nerve in their foot was turned on 24/7. However, in most of the population after the age of 60, back in the States, this nerve usually begins to fail for most, which explains the skyrocketing increase in trips, falls, and hospital visits. Did you know how many lives could be saved each year if people just woke this deep nerve from its slumber? Thousands, Chris. Let alone all the money saved for physical therapy and surgery, and it's so easy to do.
He pulled up a picture on his phone and said,
"All it takes is 10 seconds with this special little rubber ball made with hardened particles, designed to shock this nerve back to life." And by shock, I don't mean an electrical shock. All you have to do is sit down in a comfy chair and roll this special little ball on your foot for at least 10 seconds in a specific motion to stimulate this sleeping nerve out of its coma. It's actually quite relaxing and therapeutic.
"That's it?" I said.
Yep, that's it, Chris. Time for me to get some sleep. I have an early flight tomorrow. But I hope that helps, and thanks for attending my presentation.
We parted ways, and immediately I went up to my room to begin hammering out a plan Mary Ann could follow that wouldn't put any stress on her fractured ankle while giving her the chance to become more stable, resilient, and nimble on her feet as she walked. And it all started with this very brief, yet very powerful 10-second ritual to awaken this deep nerve responsible for keeping you upright and fall-proof. In fact, after discovering this, I realized how backwards most balance programs really are. because you can do all the squats, one-legged holds, and more, but if this nerve in your foot isn't activated, nothing is going to help prevent you from falling. It's like building the foundation of a house without concrete. It might look stable on the outside, but one small gust of wind and everything will fall to the ground. I shared with Marianne this breakthrough information and told her to just trust me, that everything will be all right, and eventually the guardrails in her home that reminded her of her age would be taken down. She looked at me and with depressed, sad, lonely eyes, agreed and said, okay. And in that moment, I felt her pain. This poor woman had been through hell in the recent months, and if this didn't work, who knows what would happen to her. So as the months passed and Marianne performed her rehab while following this special ritual every morning, we were getting closer to the day for her to stand on her own without a boot or assistance. And on June 28th, that day had come. I was grateful enough she allowed me to accompany her and her daughter to the hospital. We all had put in so much work together and just prayed for her success, and now the time had come. We all sat down, and like a gift from heaven, once they removed her boot and Marianne stood up and took a step, all of us flashed infectious smiles from ear to ear. But Marianne was the one smiling the most, because just like that, she was walking again, and not just baby steps, but a full, strong gait with plenty of strength and conviction. However, what got my hopes up was the difference she could feel in her feet and the ground. She said,
I could feel my toes and foot muscles firing and working like they're stabilizing my entire body.
From there, we began increasing the amount of times she used this special little ball on her foot, then added in some very precise movements to further accelerate her results, which I'll share with you in a minute. And with each passing day and week she came into the club, I could see her confidence growing by leaps and bounds, until one day she came in with her tennis racket. I asked if she was taking up a new hobby. She just laughed, smiled, and said,
Chris, I never told you this, but I used to play tennis all the time with Mike, my husband. We'd play at least 3 times a week. It brings a smile to my face. But since his death and my fall, I thought I would never play again. But now, I have the confidence to play without fear of falling like I did for so many years. I also planned a trip to hike the Grand Canyon. I'm leaving in 3 weeks with my daughter and her husband. I can't wait.
Seeing Marianne's transformation filled me with so much optimism and excitement, because I stumbled upon something so incredibly simple that you would never believe could work. But it did, while being supported by mountains of research according to this world-renowned evolutionary biologist from Harvard University. However, to really make sure this worked and Marianne's success wasn't just a fluke, I decided to recruit over 100 men and women online and over the age of 60 who scored high on the fear of falling index, even if they've never experienced one or have in the past that resulted in injury. I bought 100 of these little custom miracle balls, shipped them to each individual, and told them to follow the same protocol I created for Marianne, which started with this 10-second ritual every morning. And after 14 days, 96% of all 100 men and women reported their feeling stronger on their feet and more stable with healthier mobility. A few even commented how they tripped but caught themselves. And not only that, I had each individual take another fear of falling questionnaire, which measured their confidence walking while going about their day. And every single person whose score indicated they were deathly afraid of falling before, especially when they were alone, decreased by over 92%. And now, almost all 100 participants are skipping about and enjoying life again. Their fear is gone, and their life is back. In fact, those who feared the most and had fallen multiple times in the past noticed the greatest turnaround in their symptoms as their confidence levels shot through the roof. I knew what Dr. James told me was now 100% undeniably true because the proof was in the pudding. This could work for anyone, regardless of your age or situation. And why I'm sharing this amazing story with you, because I don't want what happened to Marianne and many other clients to happen to you or someone you love. A simple